Now we're going to make the design that we've just done on Master Robo on this machine here, which is the Craft Robo. So what we're going to do is we're going to initially place our paper onto what we call a carrier sheet. And we stick anything, any media, that's paper, card, vinyl, fabrics, onto this before placing it in the machine. We must ensure that this corner here, the top left-hand corner, goes to the top left-hand corner here of our yellow strip on the side. The cutter will cut through this and go into the adhesive backing. We have here the cutter and we have 3 adjustment caps. I would suggest you use the yellow one because that will cope very nicely with paper. The actual depth that they will cut is shown on the machine lid. Before we cut, it doesn't matter whether you cut or draw first, but before we cut in this particular case, I'm going to use the pen holder. Now, and we're going to now place it in the machine. You've got a clamping screw here. At 10 o'clock position, it's open, and at the 2 o'clock position, it's closed. So let's open it up, just support it with your finger there, and place the holder with this clamping screw to the front, and then just push it all the way down until it can't move. Once it's there, you can clamp it tightly in place. Now to place the carrier sheet in position, you do have just here a line on the bed of the machine, and that line is a guideline for this edge of your carrier sheet. So you ensure that that edge lines up with that line when you place it against the rollers. You also have a black strip on the bed of the machine, and we're going to wind in our carrier sheet using the feed screw on the side here, so as the media, i.e. the paper in this particular case, the front part of that media is lined up with the back edge of that black strip. We can now send our design in Master Robo to it. Output settings. We want to look at the colours, and so we go to cut line settings. And our 3 colours come up. As we only want to interpret on our drawing the blue, all the blue, because we set the pen up to do the graphics and the text, we only want the blue to be ticked. So let's get rid of those and say OK to the blue. You will notice at the bottom there's an output to Craft Robo here. So let's use that. This page comes up, which is output to Craft Robo. And when we click on here, the machine will talk to us and tell us that we're connected. This page comes up. It's very easy to use this page. We've got 6 stages. So the first then is media type, and we go up to media type here, which is the only black area shown. Everything else is greyed out. And it has pen already there. So we say next. It's now asking us, is the ballpoint pen in place? Yes, it is. We did that earlier, so we can say next. The next stage is design orientation. You could either have landscape or portrait. We drew in landscape, and that's already highlighted there, so we can say next. It's now asking us, have we loaded the media into the craft robot? Yes, we have. We loaded it on the carrier sheet and we're saying OK therefore. And we go to next. The next question is registration marks. Do we want to search for registration marks? Well, if you remember, I placed a plain piece of paper on the carrier sheet, so there were no registration marks printed on there. So therefore we don't need to tick it. So we say next. Then finally it's asking us, do we want to start cutting or drawing? And we say yes, cut. It then asks us again, you see, can't read the registration marks, but do you want to cut anyway? Yes, we do. And then finally, do you want to go ahead? Yes, we do. And we click OK. The machine jumps into action and will not follow the operation in terms of the order in which you did the design, but actually follows the quickest route from one end of the page to the other. The drawing's now been completed, all the text, all of the graphics, so we now need to set up the cutter. Ensure that you don't touch the feed screw here. Otherwise you'll destroy the relationship between the cutting and what you've already created with the pen. So let's just take the pen out. We'll now put the cutter in place. You'll notice that this cutter here has a little plastic web on the side. It's indicated on the top here that you should make sure that this web points in the direction away from myself, and so we just drop it in, again holding the base there, pushing it all the way down and locking it. And now we're ready for cutting. So we go to our output settings, click on output settings, and go to cut line settings to set up our colours. This time we're going to cut the outside line and the ellipse, which is black, and it's a solid cut line. We do not want to cut all the blue. I also need to click the red. So let's just highlight dashed line. So we say OK to that. Down the bottom again. Output to craft robot. We click here and the machine talks to us. And we're now back into our 6 stages for cutting. We go to the top here and we always use the second one. We say next. It then asks us, have we mounted the yellow cap on the end of the blade holder? We did that earlier, and so yes, we have done. Everything stays the same from the previous operation, so landscape is still ticked, media is still loaded, search registration marks is still unticked, and we can therefore go to cut. Again it will ask us the same question, but we want to cut anyway, and finally we're happy with everything and we say OK. The cutting is finished, so we can now take it out of the machine. So wind it out, and then when you've got it out, you can then take off your product. Now we've produced our first CAD prototype. The next stage is to embellish this card.